And now on Nights with Steve Price, the Courses and Career Show with Danny Bielik. Thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
Danny's with us in the studio as he is each Wednesday night, back from one of his quick trips around Asia. And I asked him to have a look through the budget, particularly education and in the employment sector. You've been in Singapore. In the last time we spoke to you in Bangkok, then you went to Singapore.
Yep.
They're obviously the lion of Asia, still the leading economy of Asia in our nearest region. They do incredible things. They got a lot of Australians living up there now because of their lower tax regime. A lot of rich Australians living there. Is Singapore still kicking goals in this region?
Singapore is pumping. And, you know, Steve, what they've been able to do is really reinvent themselves. So here's a country that's like 2 kilometres wide and 2 kilometres long, right? 5 and change million people living there, all on top of each other. And they were manufacturing hard drives and they were doing all sorts of things like that. The high-tech stuff with, little screws and putting all these things together and whatever, that stuff all went to China, went to Vietnam, went to Thailand. And they said, well, what is it that we will actually do as a nation? We have no natural resources at all. In fact, they import their water from Malaysia, which is a really big problem for them. And so they said, you know what, we're going to become an international hub for a couple of really important things. One of them is finance. The other is education.
And aviation.
You drive around, absolutely, and aviation. I mean, their geography really helps them with that one. That's about the only thing their geography really does.
Safe, secure.
Absolutely. And they have said that you can be efficient and do all of these sorts of things and it will draw people. And you know what it does. With education, they've done exactly the same thing. They have the big names in international universities who have gone and set up shop in that country, and they are booming. And they not only have great names like New York University and Chicago School of Business there in Singapore with their Asian headquarters in Singapore, they also have some great homegrown brands that are known around the world now. Singapore Management University, National University of Singapore. And they've done that because they have a system that supports large, good brands of education being promoted to the world, unlike Australia, which is still a closed shop as far as universities go. We've only had one brand new university set up in the last 20 years in Australia. That's Torrens University in Adelaide. And a number of universities have come and gone. We've had joint venture operations set up also in Adelaide. Carnegie Mellon, which is pretty much shut down its shop. University College London, which has just shut down its shop. So we are a country that is actually hostile to international brands setting up shop in higher education. And the one thing that we say we want to be really, really good at, our country is hostile from a policy point of view, and it's depriving us of export revenue, and it's also depriving Australian kids and Australian graduates of opportunities to learn from some of the best brands in international education.
There's no reason at all that Sydney couldn't be doing exactly what Singapore is doing, right?
Absolutely, except that there is the federal regulations basically make it almost impossible for an international university to set up here.
That rules out competition, does it?
Pretty much.
It protects the Sydney universities and the Sydney Tech and all of those places.
It's a form of protectionism, absolutely.
And why was that not what Christopher Pyne was trying to get at with some of his university reform?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, the budget was pretty much mute on all of this stuff. So he is still hoping to push through a lot of these reforms. And by and large,
so that's not in the budget?
Are good. It's not explicitly written in the budget, but if you look very, very carefully at the numbers, Steve, you'll see that the policy proposals that Christopher Pyne put up at the last election and that they touted to the public and did a very, very bad job of selling are still well and truly part of the federal government's plans.
So they're in there. It wasn't mentioned at all in the speech by the Treasurer.
Correct.
Not one line.
And did you see all you saw of Christopher Pyne the last 48 hours is a nodding head?
Yeah, he has not been out speaking at all. He's had no discussion with him about education. We're going to talk about education. And I wouldn't mind taking calls from people tonight on 131873. If you are a tradie or you're in one of those businesses turning over less than $2 million and you are able now to go out and spend on equipment $20,000 that you can immediately claim back, tell us what you might be buying, where you're going to take your business with that new equipment. I was at a little coffee shop today, tiny hole-in-the-wall place.
Yep.
They were aware completely of that part of the budget.
How good is
that
that?
is going to drive employment. And I said, well, what could you do with the $20,000 that you can then claim back? I mean, people get a misconception about this. What that means is you can take that expense
Correct.
and take it off your bottom line or your profit, and then so you reduce your taxation.
Yeah,
you're not getting a cheque written out for 100% of what you buy.
No. That's right.
She
That's
said
right.
I'd buy a new coffee machine. And
Yeah.
I said, how much are they? She said about $16,000.
Oh, it's a lot of
so
money.
the machine's been, churning out great coffee for 5 or 6 years. She's a single mum with 3 kids, raising them and trying to run this place. She actually wants us to find someone to work there, which we might do next week, because she's been through the horrors that you and I have talked about before.
Oh, yeah.
Here's an anecdote for you. She's had people come. She's advertising for someone to work from 6:30 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. They turn up after she's advertised in the local paper.
Yep.
One kid turned up there 3 hours early and expected to be interviewed.
Right.
Another turned up, and 5 minutes into the chat with the owner, his phone rang. So he said, put his finger up in the air and answered the phone call.
Look, I'm hearing
She
all
just
these.
walked
I'm
away.
hearing these horror stories
So,
all over the
new
place.
coffee machine. I mean, so what you do then is, when you put your tax bill in for the end of the financial year, you can take that off the top.
Yeah, and
reduce
you
your
get.
tax.
But the difference is that, like a coffee machine, I'm not an accountant, so I don't know what
Me
the
either.
depreciation schedule of a coffee machine is. But you'd imagine it's more than a year. So instead of taking the tax deduction over 4 or 5 or 6 years, you take it in one go in 1 year.
You get
What
it.
they're encouraging people to do, they're encouraging small businesses with turnovers of less than $2 million to go out there, buy stationery, buy that new photocopier, buy that new printer, buy that new computer that will make your business more efficient, buy that coffee machine, buy that ute. And the guys who are employing the people in the office works, in the Toyota dealership, in the stationery supply company around the corner are the ones who should now be looking for new employees. They should be looking for people to service all those small business people who should be pouring into all of these stores. What they should realise, what small business employers should realise, is that they can take advantage of that accelerated depreciation as of 7:30 p.m. last night. So today's the day, tomorrow's the day. Go out there, and by stimulating your business, you're stimulating somebody else's business, and they will employ more people.
Anyone who's done that today, give us a call on 131 873 and let us know. Shares in JB Hi-Fi, Harvey Norman, Myer all went up today.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
On
I'm
the
not surprised.
expectation that would happen. Anyone out there can explain to us how exactly that depreciation change works, please give us a call and let us know. We'll get on to education in a minute. Let's go through the job issue. On the figures that I've looked at in the budget, I noticed that they are still saying that unemployment rate is going to hang around about 6%, which a bit above 6, ticks up to, I think, 6.5 in the highest estimate.
Correct.
That's too high, isn't it?
So it goes like 6.25, 6.5, 6.25, and stays well above 6% for the next 3 or 4 years. It's a really big problem,
about youth
Steve.
unemployment?
Youth unemployment's horrible. Youth unemployment right now across the nation between 15 and 19-year-olds is 19.7%. This is an intractable problem. I'm pleased to see
That's a narrow band of age, though.
It is a narrow
I think you
band.
need to be careful talking about that. I appreciate what you're saying, but when you run in the 15 to 17-year-olds in there, you're talking about early school
15 to
leavers, aren't you?
19s, but you're talking about early school leavers. You're also don't forget.
But I guess
you're
that's
also,
the true
but you're
definition of youth.
cancelling out. You're cancelling. This is actually where the problem begins in that age band. You're also cancelling out the people who are in education. They are not counted as unemployed. So if you're at uni, you're at a training organisation like a TAFE or a private RTO, you're not counted as part of that unemployment figure. So that figure is actually quite important. You're still in the 14s and 15s, and in some parts of Australia, it's north of 30%, some of these youth unemployment figures, and in some parts of Western Sydney, you're talking about more than a quarter of the population, a quarter of the youth population, and that's people looking for work.
When you pull out the slice 19 to say 25, you might not have that figure off the top of your head, but we should find that out too, shouldn't we?
Yeah, you normally, the Bureau of Statistics does it in 15 to 19 and 15 to 24. I don't know about 19 to 24.
righto.
So
Well, we should just pull that apart and see, because it is a problem.
Yeah, look, it is.
I'll get to what the budget says about jobs and how we're going to fix that employment issue, because that's the big... I mean, at the heart of all of those numbers that I sat through last night and all the speeches, it surely has to be about, if you're going to get the economy back working, is to get people into work. That's what happens.
It is. It really is.
That's why we've had this tortured debate about paid parental leave.
Yep.
It's about getting women who've had children back to work so they're earning money and paying tax.
Absolutely. So the things about... There are some really great things that get my tick of approval, Steve, in
Let's
this.
talk to Pete about this first, and we'll get on to them. Hello, Peter.
Yes, Steve. Just out of curiosity, and that's all this. If you haven't got 20 grand, where does the 20 grand come from to buy the item? So you can get the 20 grand discount on your tax.
Well, I guess the only way, if you've not got the money, you probably shouldn't be buying the item. But if you have got the money, you can.
That's true, and that's a funny comment there. But do you borrow the 20 grand? Do you go into debt to get it, or?
No, you know what you do, Peter? You go and find a business that's employing people to sell all those extra coffee machines, and you go in there and you try and help them sell those extra coffee machines, and that's how you make the money to buy the next thing that you need. It's, you can either you'll benefit buying some of this stuff, but you'll also benefit selling it, and that's the idea of this.
I think what Peter's saying, if you're a small business and things are tough at the moment, you've still got to have the money to buy the gear. Yeah. I mean, interest rates are historically low, Peter, so yes, you could borrow it, but I think that sort of goes against the whole grain of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to stimulate the economy by getting people to spend. But if you had a small business like that woman I was talking to today, and she felt that by getting that new coffee machine that she can depreciate and claim against her tax was going to improve her product, you then got to make the judgment on whether that investment is worthwhile, and if it is, you go and do it.
I agree completely with what you're saying, but as I said, the 20,000 straight away as a tax deduction and not depreciation, that over a couple of years, that's great. But as I said, you've got to have the 20 grand to do it.
You do.
And I don't think a lot of people have got the 20 grand.
No, a lot of people have got no disposable cash that are in small business. You make an excellent point.
Yeah, absolutely.
9:30, more with Danny in a moment.
You're listening to the Courses and Careers Show with Danny Bielik. Thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
Danny's here. Email from John says, what's the point with the tax concession for small business? You have to be making the money to be able to spend it. Well, if you're running a small business and you're not making any money, you might be in the wrong business.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think.
I'm not being harsh there, am I?
No, you got to think. Have you created a business, or have you created a job for yourself,
or have you created something that's hanging around your neck?
Well, absolutely.
Well, you've created a chore for yourself.
Yeah, look, and I think.
I mean, who is it? Is it you that says this to me? I'm sure it was you that said this to me. What you have to do if you? Oh no, it was Heidi Armstrong said to me. Once you start a business, your ambition should be to grow it to the point where someone else is running it for you and you're making the profit from it.
That's exactly right, and that's what a business should be, and a small business should be able to withstand somebody going on holiday, sleeping in one day, all of those sorts of things. Otherwise, it is
you might as well just go and work for someone.
A job for yourself. And there's nothing wrong with self-employment, but don't kid yourself. If it's self-employment or if it's a business, then it should be able to
go into it with wide eyes where you're going to say, okay, in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years' time, I'm going to be laying on the beach while Danny's in the office slaving away for 12 hours a day, running it for me because he's such a great manager and he'll employ all the right people. The business will grow and we'll all do very well. The employees will do well and I'll do even better because I own it.
Yeah, look, I think it's really funny because people often go in because they're technically good at something. So they could be good at making coffee, they could be good as a dentist, but they may actually not be very good at managing a business. And I think they've just got to be a little bit honest with themselves. So you either learn about management, because management and running a business is quite a complicated thing. You've got to plan, you've got to work out finance, you've got to work out these things like depreciation, you've got to learn how to spell it first. I struggle. Do your BAS. Oh, don't even talk to me about BAS. All of these sorts of things, it's actually quite complicated to run a business. But to be good at something, to be self-employed as a barista or something like that, that is a completely different problem.
Peter's in Mona Vale and he's still working tonight. What are you doing in the office, Peter?
I'm an accountant.
Well, that mean you have to work at 9:30?
I work every night, 7 days a week.
Well, you're a good man.
Well, I hope you listen on Wednesdays as well.
He does. He's listening to us.
Sounds good.
When you saw that last night, the $20,000 depreciation aspect of the budget, you must have been rubbing your hands together, Peter.
Look, it's an interesting concept. We don't just go and spend money for the sake of spending it. We're accountants, remember?
Yeah, but you're going to have a whole stack of people presumably ringing you up going, how can I turn that $50,000 bit of equipment I need into 2.5 bits of 20?
Well, I'm going to give you a little idea.
Okay, here we go.
And this is professional advice. I'm not charging.
Am I paying for this?
No, not at all.
Righto.
I love you guys on TGV. I love you all. Look, what people can do, but it all depends on the business too. And if you're doing under $2 million, you'd be running a reasonable sized business to be able to get some finance. What I'd be suggesting to people is you go and finance all these. You can actually take a shadow mortgage hire purchase out where, in effect, you own the equipment and you pay back the equipment over a period of time. It can be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So effectively, if you want some equipment now, you go and hire purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
You get the $20,000 deduction up front on your tax, on your taxable income.
Yes.
And you just pay it off over a period of time, so you don't have to go and find the cash immediately.
See, these are the clever people.
This is,
world.
I reckon accountants make these sorts of rules up to make work for themselves.
No,
but look,
they don't. That's
Peter,
a brilliant idea.
Peter, I think it is absolutely a brilliant idea. And if anyone didn't understand what Peter just said, they should ring their accountant tomorrow.
No.
They should ring their accountant tomorrow, make some more work for the accountants. But Peter, can I ask you a question? Have you got any small businesses that are in retail, that are in motor trades, that are in office equipment, that are in things like that, who've rung you up today and said, do you reckon this is going to be good for my business? Should I go out and employ a couple more people tomorrow?
I've had 2 people ring me this morning, and no, not a lot have rushed to see me today or talk to me, and particularly because we're at a very peak period of our time now as tax agents. By Friday, we've literally got to lodge all our tax returns for clients who are running.
But do you reckon your clients who are in those sorts of businesses might be thinking they're going to have an uptick?
They will. One client rang me and said, "Look, I want to buy 2 new cars. I'm going to."
So there you go, Steve. It's having the effect.
Hey,
it's having the effect.
Oh, yeah, it's having the effect.
Peter, you say you're at the peak of your work. How come I was addressing a breakfast in Canberra this morning where 600 people were at the Independent Practicing Accountants Breakfast, Institute of Public Accountants Breakfast?
Yeah, but those guys are making money. I'm not.
I'll invite you next year when I address it again, Peter. Thank you, mate.
Thanks,
Keep working.
Peter.
Hello, Bernie.
Hello. Look, I'm in business and I have been for a long time. What they're trying to say to you is that you can get up to $20,000 on the one purchase, but they're not restricting it to that. And if, like I've got 2 or 3 businesses now, if I want to go and buy a diagnostic machine for $7,000, I can go and buy that and get the maximum percentage of the depreciation that you get up to $7,000 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5, 6 times. The difficulty that you have if you start borrowing money, some small businesses don't want to go into the process of having finance on their books.
Yep.
So it's got to be explained properly. And that is, own a business, buy what you can up to $20,000 as many times as you like, 3 or 4 times through the year, and you get what the discount is. If you have the cash and you want to go and buy something for $20,000, that's as far as you can go.
Bernie, what sort of business are you in?
But you can buy, Bernie, unless I've mistaken it, you can buy anything up to $20,000 as many times as you like, as long as it's different things.
That's what they're trying to say to you. That's what they said, and that's what what's his name Hockey said, that you can do that. I've been in business for a long, long time. I've been in a number of different businesses, mostly the motor industry. It's a wonderful thing. If you want to go and buy a wheeler liner for $12,000, go and do it. And then if you want to go and buy a diagnostic machine, or you want to buy a utility for your deliveries or something, each of those could be one of, and then you can get the advantage of buying that and get the depreciate or get the maximum amount of depreciation on that, and you don't have to expense things either. Oftentimes you buy something for about $4,000 or $5,000, and you might want to depreciate it and not put it on your books, and that means that if you buy something, you can capitalise it and leave it on your books so as it doesn't affect your balance sheet as an expense. And it needs somebody Well, I do know a lot about it, but
Yep.
Bernie,
I'm not
Bernie,
a professional.
are you, no, I get it.
I understand that, Bernie. I understand it completely. You've explained it well. I mean, see, people like Bernie knows what he's talking about. You and I don't pretend to be accountants. No. Will this drive employment? I think
it's pretty obvious that it
Potentially will.
Absolutely, it will. But imagine this. So we were talking about what the unemployment figures are going to be over the next few years. Imagine
6.25.
Bad it would have been had this not have been done. Had all these stimulus things not been done. Had the education and training changes not been done. Had the apprenticeship changes not been done. The youth unemployment, stimulus to employ young people, the stimulus to employ old people. Who knows what it would have been?
Simon, hello.
Hi, how are you?
We're well.
Good, mate. I just on the radio a few minutes ago, and I heard you both speak about how people think that if they own a business, that automatically they're business people. And what you said, you guys were 100% right. That people just they just buy a business to buy a job,
yep.
and they don't realize. I've been in business for a long time, and they don't realize that if a year goes past and they don't actually earn a wage, they should just step out of the business.
Yeah, you got to grow. You got to grow it, don't you?
You got to grow it. And you can't say to yourself, "Oh, I just make $1,000." Just argument's sake, a week.
Yeah.
But count how many hours you've worked to make $1,000, and if you go and work for somebody else. At the lowest rate, you'd make more than $1,000 if you were getting per hour for the hours.
That's exactly right.
I mean, the freedom of running your own operation to some people is a benefit on the side of
yeah.
that. They're not concerned about growing it into a profitable business. They just don't want to work for someone else.
I understand that, but at the same time.
I reckon you put it. Simon, you put it perfectly.
Yeah.
The difference between buying a job and becoming an entrepreneur and starting a business and growing it is very wide.
Look, my brother and I, we've been in business for probably 30 years. We've had service stations, we've had gymnasium, we've had car washes, we've had restaurants, we've had anything. We're very versatile with our business. We go somewhere where it's a good idea and we turn it into a business. If it works good, we keep it for a while, it makes money, we sell it, we make our money, and we walk away.
You enjoy that?
If it doesn't work, I love it. And I love it, especially when I come up with new ideas.
So when you creatively find a gap in the market, that must give you a hell of a buzz.
I love it because I go to a niche market, I create something that's not, or I don't have to create, I just see what works, and I just make it better.
Good on you. Fantastic.
Simon, you've absolutely nailed it. And, by going
Living the dream, Danny.
But absolutely. And by going, what you've highlighted, Simon, is the difference in the skills between being able to manage a business and being able to do what you do if you're a mechanic or
Living
a service station owner. Absolutely.
Good stuff, Simon. Hello, Steve.
Hello, mate. I'm just like Simon. I do a usually 3-year churn and burn. I come up with an idea, find the niche, turn it over, get the profit and loss, so it shows that it's a decent business, and then flog it off and do something else.
What gives you the biggest kick out of that?
To be honest with you...
You're listening to the Courses and Career Show with Danny Bielik. Thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
Well, small business has been doing high fives about this, and I should think the government ought to be, given the reaction that we've just had from a whole bunch of people. Peter's in Shellharbour. Sorry, Danny. Yeah. Hello, Peter.
G'day, boys. Big fan of the show.
How are you,
Look,
Peter?
I've been hard at it. I'm a builder. I suppose it's a selfish question, but I'm looking at probably. I've been umming and ahhing to take a couple of young blokes on. I have before, and I know the incentives. So I was just trying to find out about the incentives for the apprentices. I hear they're going to be a lot better.
Yeah, look, they've got a new scheme. They're hoping to put another 350,000 apprentices supported through the new apprenticeships network, and this is in the first year. The budget's provided up to $200 million in 15-16. They reckon about 78,000 employers are going to receive incentive payments. Look, there wasn't much detail around this, and I went and had a look a bit more about what's available to hire apprentices. But, we've been talking on the Courses and Careers show for the last 2 years that apprenticeship numbers have been falling off a cliff. And this is the first piece of good news I've heard in a long time.
Tell you what we'll do for you, Peter. We'll go to the federal minister who's in charge of this scheme and get him on next week to explain exactly how to work.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's good. It's a love fest. It's very good.
Good on you, Peter. Thank you, mate. Hello, Frank. How are you?
How are you?
Yeah, good.
I'd just like to raise a subject which is very tender and some people don't like it. The trade unions have probably lost about 1 million jobs for Australian workers in the last 20 or 30 years. And it's not so much that the wages are so high, it's the other things that come with it that employers shouldn't be subjected to. In other words, when a person comes to work for you and does a good week's work and you pay him, you shouldn't have to be a branch of the Centrelink to look after his welfare as well as that. That's not the employer's job. And the second thing is there is a sort of a feeling out there in society which has been created by unions that all employers are rats and finks and pigs and thieves and cheats and tax avoiders. And it's made employers as a whole say, look, I don't really want to employ anybody, I'll employ a contractor.
Well, I think in general terms those comments are made. That's workplace reform. Howard government got bruised by it. They're very reluctant to go back there. They might one day. Darren, hello.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Good, Darren, thanks.
That's good. I've got a question. My wife, she is a subcontract to another company name, a company brand name.
Yep.
That 20 grand, can she do anything with that because she works for a company under their brand. I don't want to give too much away. But
we're not accountants, so we can't give you that advice. But my understanding is that as long as the incorporated business or an independent,
she's in the real estate industry,
or an independent contractor is turning over under $2 million, yes, you can purchase equipment to do your job.
Oh, look, go and make a little bit of work for your family accountant, and just
quick call, Darren. But I suspect what you're getting at: can she go and buy a car under 20 grand and claim it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My understanding is yes, but don't get her to do it tomorrow on my say-so.
Absolutely.
No.
You'd have an accountant ring them, but I think you can, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and let you know Hawaii was good, mate.
Let us know. It was?
I talked to you a couple of months ago, yeah.
It's a good spot. Where'd you go?
Stayed at Maui. It was the best. Loved it.
Beautiful. Good on you, mate. Thank you. Let us know how you get on with that. Reece, g'day.
G'day, how are you?
Well.
I've been under a rock a bit, but if I have brought, I'm an IT, I run my own software company.
Yep.
And we've brought service for $15,000 in December, so I get money back on that as well now, a bit better.
If you bought it in December this year, then what happens is that last year? No,
It had to be after 7:30 last night.
Okay, so I have to, no problem. So if I buy servers now, new service, therefore I can basically
you can claim the depreciation on those servers off your company tax next year. You also are you turning over under $2 million?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're incorporated?
Yeah, well, Proprietary Limited, yeah.
So your company tax now drops from 30% to 28.5%?
That's awesome, yep.
And there's also a $1,000 bonus there in that package. I would recommend that you go online to the Treasury online, have a look up exactly what these reforms mean, and I think you'll be pretty happy, mate.
And to use the difference to go out and employ someone who's currently unemployed, and you'll get another up to $10,000 from the government to help employ someone who's young or old.
You've employed 50 people tonight. Well done.
Unbelievable.
See you next week.
See you, mate.